Let's see how many things we can discover tonight about being afraid. We began the investigation of fear, tension, anxiety, apprehension, and all its small confederates such as timidity, withdrawal. We studied that a bit last Wednesday, and we'll continue with it. Because the understanding of fear, the complete understanding of it, is the only thing that will end it. But you have to remember at the very start that the way you are now constituted, what you now are, has no intention at all of understanding and ending fear. The part of you likes to be you, because it's been you all these years, is quite a fierce enemy of you understanding what fear of any kind is all about. So that's the first thing to be aware of, to understand, that you don't want to understand at all. And this being unconscious in you, you may even deny that you're pushing away the understanding of your fear. And you may sit right here to yourself and say, yes, that's why I come here, isn't it? I come here to get over being a victim of myself, being a prey to my own thoughts and feelings and foolish actions. Isn't that why I'm here? Well, to come here is certainly a good start. So we can start now. We're afraid because we live in an unfinished house. Living in an unfinished house, that is, in a psychological system that is incomplete, that has only half a roof, half a foundation, half the windows it should have. It's not very solid at all. Living in an incomplete house, we're afraid that we might not be able to complete it. Not only that, but we're afraid that we might not be able to build this house according to our own specifications, according to our own desires. If you build a house for yourself on a nice big empty lot, you get your blueprints set up, and you get the carpenters and electricians and so on. And you build the house the way you want it to be, a nice big living room and a double garage, whatever you want. And of course it's quite legitimate for you to want that house to be the way you want it, to take care of your physical needs, to be comfortable, enjoy yourself. But spiritually, psychologically, you're not the architect. You're not the builder. And this is what makes us afraid. Because we say, I must have my self, my psychological inner self, built in a way that will make me secure, make me happy, make me unafraid, make me in command of myself. And we make the mistake of demanding that the house be built according to what we want it to be. I want my house to be a 3-story house. And why do I want it to be a 3-story house? I'll tell you why. Because your neighbor only has a 2-story house. You want a twice as big bedroom as he has, twice as big living room, twice as big kitchen, twice a big car to go into the double garage and all that. In other words, we are building our lives wrongly because we're building it and living it from a sense of competition, from a sense of believing that we must have these things in order to be happy. And one of the great mistakes we make in the building of it is that we think we presently have the intelligence to build it the way we want it to be. But we don't have that intelligence at all, because if we had intelligence for building our lives, we wouldn't try to build it at all according to what we now think, according to the way we now feel about things, according to the way we now feel about ourselves. In other words, and this is a key thought now that we're going into, we're afraid because we live in an incomplete house, which in itself is a part of evolution. We were born incomplete. That is not wrong. That's just the way it is. This is it. We're all born incomplete. But we try to build according to our plans with our mind, with the intellect, and with everything connected with our wishes. And one of the most foolish wishes we have, which wrecks the building program so that it can't proceed naturally as God intended it to, is our wish to have others help us build the house. Now, you know what that means? That means, in spite of all our vanity, all our egotism that says, I know what will make me happy, getting mad will make me happy, moving to another state will make me happy, getting praise and popularity will make me happy, living in my secret daydreams will make me happy. In spite of all these things, we don't see that at the same time we say, I can do it. We also demand not only that the wife do it, the husband do it, the boss do it, the social system do it, but the entire world must conform to what I want so that I'll feel secure, so that I'll feel that I'm okay, that everything is all right. This brings us back to a very basic point. We're all very lazy. We absolutely refuse to stop and force ourselves, first of all, to see where we're building incorrectly. Can't you see what you've done to your house life so far? We didn't and don't even have sense enough to put the foundation there. We're building on sand, and guess what's going to happen to the house when you first start to build it? It's going to tilt, isn't it? The rain's going to come in, the storm is going to come in, which it does it not? Do you know what the foundation is? So that something besides us can start to build on top of it? The foundation, some of you have heard this before, maybe some of you others hearing it for the first time. The foundation upon which you build your right house, your psychic house, is a sense of complete defeat, where you're quite convinced that those blueprints you've drawn up, that those carpenters you've hired, that everything you've done to build the house is all wrong. You're so convinced that it's all wrong that you're not going to continue with it anymore. You're not going to ask your friends for advice as if you listen anyway. You just want to talk to them about your troubles. So you trade a little bit with them. We have to get to the point where you're convinced, quite sure, that you can't build it, can't do it. You know how you do that? Simplest thing in the world, if you'll do it. Stand back about 50 yards from this life, this house you've built up to this point. Look at it very carefully and see what a pile of junk it is. It's never been anything but junk. No wonder we're uncomfortable. No wonder we're scared. Because lo and behold, we're living in a haunted house. Right?
Right.
You stand back from there, and while this is a figure of speech, what I'm going to say, it's an apt one. You stand back from there and watch all the bats flying in and out of your house. And you have bats in your house. Watch all the ghosts that come into your nightmares, come into your daymares, your little petty frustrations, your inability to stop running, right? Your inability to stop running. If we can stand back and see that the whole thing has been built all wrong because we've tried to build it out of the intellect, out of mere ideas. When we see that, that's just the beginning of the fear. To see the bats flying in and out and the ghosts gliding in and out, that's just part of it. But the worst is yet to come. The worst, which is the best, of course. The best worst yet to come is to see that you have to give up completely. You can't even ask anyone else to go over there and do it for you, because you are choosing who you want to do it for you. If I marry that man, I'll be happy. If I get rid of that woman, I'll be happy, or whatever you happen to say. You're all by yourself, and you have to give up all by yourself, so that you no longer try to think your way through life. See, examine for a minute the idea of the idea about ideas. Ideas about my life, what will make it complete, what will get rid of fear. All ideas exist in the intellect, they exist in time. Therefore, fear itself is an idea that lives in time. If I can just make my plans good enough to erect this house, then I'll live comfortably in it. But look, that takes time, doesn't it? Here it is, March 18th, and I'm going to start building this house, and maybe by August 1st, I'll have it finished. Then I'll be comfortable. Then I'll be happy. Obviously, I'm unhappy now because things aren't going right with my house, with my life. Things are not going right. So, of course, I'm afraid and miserable, but you just wait. I've got plans to do this or do that, financial security. And unfortunately, you may be quite unaware of how you're planning to build your security, what you call your security, by building up a whole new fantasy world of thoughts, of ideas, getting yourself involved in doing something that'll take a lot of time, that'll take a lot of energy, that'll even make you so tired that you'll do what you want to do and what you're trying to find a justification for doing, which is to go to bed and sleep. So we're going to have to understand that as long as we're thinking in time toward ourselves, we're making a double mistake. First of all, I'm thinking that I can do something with me by August 1st. What I can do by August 1st is to simply wreck the house in a new way by August 1st, by getting the new wife or the new husband, or changing my ways of thinking, becoming spiritual, what I call spiritual perhaps. So it should be clear that my fear will remain as long as I'm trying to think my way through life, using my ideas, which are not mine anyway. They're all acquired. I adopted them from Mama and Papa and everybody else. So I'm afraid because I'm caught in the squirrel cage of my own revolving thoughts. And when I don't know where to go, I immediately create another thought and say, this is the way to go. Then the next minute, no, it's this way to go. No, it's that way to go. And the one right thought that rarely occurs to me, which was mentioned a minute ago, is to stop trying to do anything at all. Let the mind come to rest. Let it come to a stop. And just sit back and rightly defy the nervous little carpenters and electricians and roofers and gardeners that insist on going ahead and building this house. And I have come to see finally that is indeed a haunted house, so I call the whole thing off. Now what am I going to do? I have no place to go to. Marvelous. How marvelous. I have no place to go to. I've canceled time. It takes time for my hand to move from here over to here. You think time has passed because of the physical movement of my hand in time from here to here. If I didn't do that, you wouldn't say time has passed. But it appears that time exists because the mind said, with ideas, it took time to move from here to here. So when I cancel time completely, when I cancel it, am I there to go anywhere at all? Am I there? I exist myself only in my self-concepts. Put an end to the self-concepts, and I put an end to the idea that there is Vernon or Leland or Juan or Joan or Connie to go anywhere. When I don't go anywhere, I'm in the castle. If I'm trying to reach what I call the castle, I go to the haunted house every time. You're following this?
Yes.
If I cease to walk, cease to go anywhere, then obviously it's because I see that there's no me to go anywhere and also no me to reach anywhere. So the absence of traveling means I finally see something that is above my ideas about the building, whatever it may be. I'm above my ideas about the building. Therefore, I am not only in it, but I am it myself. The end of the traveler puts him in the castle. And the castle is here and now, not there. I want to go there because I want that house to be built according to my ideas of what will make me secure, right? And I call it a castle, of course, but I never notice the bats and the ghosts. So I slow down. I don't go anywhere, which doesn't mean that I cease to exist. But I'll tell you what it does mean. It means I'm not afraid anymore. What's there to be afraid of? What's there to be afraid of? Who is there to be afraid? There's no one there, is there? If there's no builder, there's no one there. He's not trying to do a thing. What he has done is understand thoroughly everything we've talked about. So he lays down his saw and his hammer and his hoe and his rake, and finally comes to the very, very intelligent conclusion that maybe, just maybe, there's an intelligence in this universe that is more intelligent than he is. Just maybe God has more brains than he has. Very hard on the vanity to stand back and see that the roof is all slanted and the foundation is caving in and the boards are falling off and the rain pours in through the door. hard on the vanity, isn't it? Do you know that every time you get mad, that's vanity? When you get angry at anything at all, that's your vanity talking. And you know what the vanity is saying? The vanity, and it's also screaming too, and it's also pleading too. The vanity is saying, don't you dare point out to me that the door on that house is hung at an angle. Or, don't you dare point out to me that half the bricks on that chimney are falling off. Don't you dare call me anything but the perfect builder. You'll never win. I'll never win. You know why? You can't live for one day without 500 different items. Your friends, experiences, your own mind pointing out to you what a terrible carpenter you are. But we don't pay attention, do we? Our vanity, which is an idea too, an idea about ourselves, our vanity becomes a blanket. Just putting a blanket up between us and what we must face, what we must see. And so we live in the haunted house, scared. And you know what? One among other things we're scared of, because we don't have much brains. We're just scared that the castle itself that we could have doesn't really exist. We don't know that it exists. How can we know that it exists? All we've ever known are the bats in the belfry. That is what we've lived with, the bats being our own lies, our own deceits, our own irritations, our own envies, our own pretenses that all is well when it really isn't. You're all pretenders, you know. We're all pretenders, you know. Are you tired enough yet? Apparently not, because I've told you many times you're going to have to get 20 times as tired of fighting as you now are. And you're going to have to stop calling your haunted house a castle. How can a haunted house be a castle? How can you be miserable, which you are, and live in a castle? A castle is a happy place. There's minstrels, and there's big banquet tables. Somebody is telling lies. Do you have any idea who it might be? You know very well. I'll tell you. The haunted house, as miserable as it is home. What a home. Falling through the door, through the floor every 5 steps into the dungeon. The haunted house is home, all we've ever known. The haunted house is the only home your wife or husband and relatives and friends and fellow workers at work ever known. That's all they've ever known, and that's all you've ever known. And so society, as liars, begins to say, I'll tell you what, let's make an agreement, let's make a pact. Let us all call our haunted houses castles. And by mutual agreement, we'll keep the lie going that we're all happy, that all is well, the future is okay. You tired of lying? I'll tell you. And then we'll stop with this. Take the first step out of your haunted house, as scary as it is. You love the bats. You are the bats. That's right. I'm not trying to be funny. You are the bats in your own house. What bat is there beside you or me? Our own thoughts, emotions, those insane emotions. How many had an insane emotion this month? This week? Today? Take the first step out of the haunted house. Don't you dare know the direction of the castle. That is, you're not to define the direction out of your own memory, out of your own conditioning, out of your own desires, out of your own familiar ways of thinking and feeling and acting. Because if you do, you'll just walk to another haunted house and call it the castle. Then you'll go into your lies all over again. You'll get religious or something and say you're happy because you're religious. Are you happy you've got a new club? They'll club you. Stay out of the haunted house for a little bit longer period each time. First time 1 minute, then you race back. Because you can't stand all that beautiful grass and greenery and trees out there. It's so unfamiliar. That tree must be a ghost. I've never seen anything like that before. It must be a ghost. Go up and look at it. You'll see it's a tree and very pretty and very desirable. And it'll give you a natural feeling. The tree being natural, you'll sense your own naturalness in relationship to it. Then the next day, maybe you can venture out for 5 minutes. Next day, 10 minutes. The time will come when you're out of the house, say maybe 50 yards away, and you look out that way toward the trees and the meadows and the pretty clouds up in the sky. And then you turn around and look back at the haunted house, and you look that way, and you look that way. You're right at a terrible point. You're at the 50% point, which is dreadful. Nothing is worse. Nothing is more painful. Nothing is more scary. Nothing is more dreadful to be right halfway between. But you've had it. You've had it. So you turn toward the trees, toward the grove, and you say, I may die, but I'm going to go. And so you go. The first five steps, 10 steps, 20 steps. Finally, you're at the 51% mark. You're over. You'll never go back. Nothing can persuade you to go back. Not all your friends still living in the haunted house who call back, come on back. That beautiful, sexy woman who you were a slave to all these years. No, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. I've got better things to do with my life. That sick relative who cons you into lending him money and promise you $1 million by investing in his organization. No, sir. And you know you're doing the right thing, and how you know is because you feel, sense, you know, you understand that with every step you're just a little bit less afraid than you were before. You know it. You're not afraid anymore. Thank God. And so you walk, and the rest of your life you walk. And you know you're heading in the right direction. How beautiful. Let's take a 10-minute break. You understand, do you not, that being afraid is simply one of the ways in which we can prove to ourselves we're in a state of spiritual sleep. If I'm afraid, I'm under the spell of spiritual sleep. And being under the spell, I will rejoice 1 minute thinking that this or that is going to save me, and then the next minute be in despair because I know that it's just another dead end. Nothing can come of it. Can't you simply see that all your tensions and anxieties, your nervousness, is simply a sign that you're in the state that we've been talking about all these years, which you must begin to see is you. This is what you are. You are that state of fear. You are that state of sleep. From there, from going on to that simple basic understanding that there's something dreadfully wrong, you can then go on to the next step, which we discussed earlier, by seeing that there's nothing whatever that Chuck can do about it, that Tom can do about it, that Sarah can do about it. Nothing at all. All you can do is realize there's nothing you can do about your fear. Isn't that a strange statement? Strange to the intellect. You must realize that there's nothing whatever you can do about your fear, because anything you do about your fear is the fear itself. Fear is trying to eradicate fear. Now, does that make any sense at all, even to the most elementary logic that we can have? That a frightened person is trying to get himself over being afraid. And he seems to succeed on the surface because he holds himself in and he forces a smile or a laugh. And he puts on, or she puts on, her very best act, so that we accomplish our very shallow aim of convincing other people that we're in command of ourselves, that we're not afraid. But we don't kid ourselves, do we? The very tension of trying to appear unafraid is part of our hell, isn't it? Part of our spiritual sleep. This means then that we're going to have eventually come to the point where we understand so thoroughly that we're willing to give up, understand that any attempt on the part of my so-called me to try to improve myself, to try to better myself, to try to be courageous, will only end in failure. I can't pull myself out of the swamp. I am both in the swamp and I'm the swamp itself. I'm both in the swamp and I'm the swamp itself. When I see that, that's the first beginning of transcendence above the opposites of the intellect. That means by dying, by going lower into the earth, by dying to myself, I, at the same time, this is one of those curious contradictions, isn't it? At the same time, I ascend. The deeper I go down, the higher I go up. Because what is going down is my delusions about myself, including the delusions that I'm going up. Delusions can only drag me down. So we have a lot of work to do, a lot of studying to do, a lot of attending to these classes to do. And I'll end with this, then we'll have open discussion for those of you who are new. As best you can, the rest of you too, as best you can, you will make the resolve that you will no longer be hoaxed by your own timidities, your own apprehensions, your own dreads. I said, you will no longer be hoaxed, bluffed by the dreads you see inside of yourself. Don't you dare. No. You don't have to be scared. That's why. But to not be scared means you can't be you anymore. Do you understand that? Because you are scared. You and your fear are the same thing. If you want to get rid of the fear, then you have to get rid of you. If you're willing to get rid of you, which is a good thing, not a bad thing, then you'll be rid of your fear. You are your fear. You are both the person in the swamp and the swamp itself. Understand this thoroughly and watch how you change inwardly. Watch how you understand what natural courage is. Natural courage is simply the absence of all self-created courage. When you're not even there to create your own courage, there is courage. That is cosmic courage. And you don't have to do a thing about it. Because now, in a new way, you are it yourself. You and your cosmic courage are one. And it is effortless. It doesn't have a thing to do but to express itself, but to be. And now you rest. You rest, you're quiet, right in the middle of this mad, noisy world. You're in the world, but no longer part of it. All right, we have lots of time for questions or comments or open discussion. Anyone? Jim, please.
I think you said that man, or as we are now in the state of evolution, we are incomplete.
Yes.
Okay. So, then the only part of life that can evolve or expand is life, reality, truth. Not me, but God.
Say that again, Jim, the last part.
Then the only, see, I'm trying to create or to evolve, build my own house, which I can't. Okay. When I see this, then the only reality or truth or life can expand and grow. I can't.
No, you can't.
But then life and reality and truth are continuously expressing and evolving?
No, it's there already. I go to prepare a place for you. It's already built. How are you going to live in the castle as long as you insist on staying in the haunted house? The castle is built. Do you know how we create the castle? By stopping to build the haunted house. By not building the haunted house anymore. We've got everything inside of us to work with rightly. We have the intelligence, it's all mixed up, but we have the basic intelligence, we have a mind, which is the first step. We can work to the point where we're willing to give up, trying to bang the nails and saw the boards, all doing it wrong and all mixed up. Do you know what intelligence we do possess, which is asleep? The intelligence to stop doing wrong things. Yes, Jim.
Well, then in that statement, I go to prepare a place for you, too, okay? Then there is an expansion of truth.
Look. There are certain human beings who in the history of mankind have found the truth. One of them about 2,000 years ago, no doubt, right? He knew the truth 2,000 years ago, right?
Right.
So the truth existed 2,000 years ago, didn't it?
Right.
All right, maybe 2,000 years from now there'll be someone else who knew the truth. Isn't that the same truth, and therefore isn't it timeless? We're here tonight between these 2,000s of years. Why don't we do it tonight? By getting rid of ourselves, our egotistical selves, our lying selves, ourselves with the hard faces, which I see in this room quite often. You know what I think when I see a hard face? How that person is suffering from being who he presently is, who she presently is. I see a suffering person when I see a hard face. Yes.
Vernon, would you comment on the statement, we are born incomplete?
Obviously we are. If we were complete, we wouldn't be as miserable as we are. Isn't it incomplete to be unhappy? Could you call that a complete life, to be miserable? We're incomplete because we haven't worked to the point where we've got rid of all these negative things that are scaring us, that are scaring us because we don't see how we've been hoaxed by them. Of course we're incomplete. We're working for completion, which is not my completion, but the completion. Rod?
Yeah. I was reading the parable of the tares and the wheat, and I became fearful. Now, if I didn't identify with that, could I have used that fear positively?
Where did it scare you? When it said that the seeds fell among rocky grounds or something?
Oh, yeah, well, where the wheat gets separated at the end of the harvest from the tares.
Yeah. Are you afraid you're going to be left out? Huh?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, you don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, then.
Go back to the question of the incompleteness. It would seem that the completeness would consist in reconciling all of the diverse elements in the creation. The fact that we're unable to do that is evidenced by our fear, which occurs merely because our mind says that life should be other than it is. It should be on my terms rather than on its terms. When we are at peace or at one with whatever is going on, with whatever, to use the religious phrase, God is producing, that's the end of it. And we're automatically in the castle and complete. That is the completion.
All right. God is complete, is he not? Can you imagine God being incomplete? Are you afraid, Rod, that you might be left out?
That was one of my fears.
Yes. All right. Who is Rod who's going to be left out? Who's going to be left out?
Right, the person that's always been fearful.
The person who's always been fearful. Is that a reality? The person
No,
who's...
that's an illusion, yes. That doesn't, it's
So-
logically insane, right?
So if you say, I'm going to be left out, isn't that an illusory sentence already? Statement already? Who are you who's going to be left out? An unworthy you even? That's egotistical. I'm afraid I won't get these truths. I say that. I'm afraid I won't understand these. Who is saying that? What is saying that? Your insistence upon being you, who must have the truth to keep you going, but if you had the truth, it would put an end to you, and you don't see the contradiction. You can't get the truth to confirm Juan or Leland or Vernon. It never will do it. It can't do it. Light and darkness have nothing in common. Who is there to be saved? You are saved when you see there's no one there to be saved. You want to be saved, as Leland more or less pointed out. You want to be rescued on your terms, and you want the rescue to place you where you want to be. For example, with the false assurance that after you die, that Christ is going to take you to heaven forever and ever and ever. If you believe that, if you believe in that, how come you have so much hatred in you? Do you think that Christ is going to take your hatred to heaven? Dear man, dear woman, don't you have 1 ounce of intelligence to see that? That God or Christ is not going to take your hatred into heaven? Would it be heaven if you went there now the way you now are? Or would it be hell? Right? Write down the following, please. Clear perception of how others impose upon me frees me from fear of it. Clear perception of how others impose upon me frees me from fear of it. As long as we're playing the trading game with any other human being, as long as we want them for our own self-centered purposes, there will be fear in the relationship back and forth. And there will be fear in you as the person who want something from the other person, and yet you're afraid, aren't you, that they're going to demand a price, which they will, for your friendship, for your marriage, for your sex, or whatever. They're going to want something from you. And there's a part of you, dear wife, dear husband, or whatever, that doesn't want to pay the price at all. You want to get all you can out of that relationship and give as little as you can, and you want that other person to just treat you the way you would like to be treated without you owing anything in return, which is impossible. What I'm saying is this. Any wrong human relationship with anyone at all will of course have fear in it. And we discussed the fundamental causes of fear in the previous 2 meetings. So begin to let this filter down, trickle down to some of these specific areas that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about fear in relationship to our human relationships, in relationship to other people. And take the word imposition as a key word. And of course, to the degree that you are imposed upon by other people, you will want to impose on them, because it's both on the same level. And there will always be fear in it. Do you want some relief? Do you want to take a deep breath and say, I'm out of that at last? Then stop trading with other people. Cut yourself off psychologically. Listen. So that they come to you on your terms, or they don't come at all. Now, all of you, to one degree or another, thought that your terms means your terms. It means no human level terms, no intellectual demands, no need for comfort at all. What we're saying, I'm sure you catch this too. Any person who comes to you on your condition terms, your terms of demand, of desire, anyone who comes to you on those terms, you're going to be in a state of fear, as I just explained, and the whole thing is going to be a complete mess. When you disappear, as we've discussed here, then when anyone comes to you for any purpose whatever, you'll be able to handle it properly, because you're no longer imposing on them, and you won't permit them to impose on you. Now, start from the very beginning. The whole world is out to impose, and that's a mild word, is out to impose on everyone else. The government imposes on you. You must do this, or you must do that, or you'll go to jail, or whatever. So the world is made up of impositions. And it's a dreadful thing. However, when we reach this state of freedom from fear, which we've discussed the last 2 meetings, then we can handle these impositions because we see them as exactly that. And we're not wanting to trade. We see it clearly. You're taking my time, you're taking my money, you're taking my attention, whatever. As long as I don't want the same things from you, I can very clearly and very easily deny you the right to impose on me, up to the point I can, living in a mad world. I can deny you the right of imposing on me and set myself beautifully free of you. What a nice way to live. Think carefully in your human relationship right now, and I'll guarantee you that you're imposing and being imposed upon in small little ways. The example we had before the meeting started. Wouldn't you like to take a drive? Wouldn't you like to do this or that? And you kind of sense that the other person, if he or she is the domineering one in the relationship, he or she wants to do that, and so you submit and go along with it, even though you don't, in order to keep the goodwill, or whatever, of the other person. Don't you see then that submission to imposition is a cause of fear? So if you're going to stop being afraid with other people, you're going to have to stop imposing and permitting them to impose on you. Write down a sentence, please. How do you know that I want to hear what you want to say? How do you know that I want to hear what you want to say? You don't have to go outside of this very class to see how other people, because they are self-centered, and you and I may be equally self-centered, you don't have to go right outside of this class itself to see how we're all so totally immersed in ourselves that we come up to another person, him, her, we come up to another person and start blabbing with half-closed eyes, and guess who we're always talking about, of course? Without the slightest perception, awareness that maybe the other person doesn't want to hear what I want to say. And do you know that we've been saying this for a long, long time in these classes, and you know it still happens? It happened last night to me with at least 2 of you. I lost count after a while. You watch the next time you approach someone during the break or after the meeting, you watch yourself go into imposing action where you really think that the other person is interested in what you're going to talk about. And you catch yourself abruptly, you throw a log in front of that mechanical impulse to go up and tell them your life story or whatever. Put a log in front of the truck so as to give yourself a little shock. And also, that shock will make you aware of what you're doing, you see. Also be aware when other people come up and do that to you without resenting it, without fearing it. If you don't fear it, you'll be able to handle it properly. You could even be a little bit stern with that person, politely stern, and tell them that you don't want to give them your attention right now. You want to give your attention somewhere else. Do you think that other person cares about you? All he or she cares about is sitting there and blabbing on like a phonograph record, not knowing what is going on at all. It is up to you to know what is going on. If you do this rightly, after a time, as the fear goes away, by the way, because you're handling it rightly, consciously, without fear, you will find that less and less, a certain number of people will not come up to you and blabbermouth to you because you're no longer doing it to them, and also because they've got the faint little hint of a message by your aware manner, conscious manner, that you don't want to waste your time listening to their life story. I've told you many times, and I'll say it again, and you watch. In spite of what I'm going to say now, it will happen again and again and again, both with those of you who have been here for a long time and those who here new. You watch, sooner or later, just a question of time. During the break, or before the meeting, or after the meeting, a certain number of you in this room, or someone who comes new for the first time, will come up and stand about here, and I'll go like this, and relax, and listen to them blab for 10 straight minutes. Watch. See if I say a single word. I will nod politely once in a while. That's all I get to do. All right. All right. Now, when you do this, I have work to do, don't I? If I'm resenting it, or if I'm aware that some of you, a certain number of you, which you're doing all the time, by the way, are watching me react to this person, if I suddenly go into a role, aware that Joan, Leland, Rudy, Sarah is watching me, I have to be very careful, don't I, that I don't go into a role of the patient, kindly teacher who's listening to that blabbermouth. That blabbermouth might get the shock of his life sometime. Because you know what I'm going to do? I'm sorry. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. Guess what? You know what's coming, don't you? I'm going to... I mean, I'm only human. I may crack up. You understand? And when I crack up, right in the middle of the third repetition of what you did as a 5-year-old child and how your mama patted you on the head for that nice little poem you wrote, about the third time around on that, I'm going to interrupt you and I'm going to say in my most calm... I have to remain calm. Fine. Now let me tell you about my hot water heater. And I'm going to tell you... I'll give you a clue so as to whet your appetite for it. See, the last time the plumber installed my hot water heater, the time before, I didn't know what to do with the guarantee, see, and so I lost it. But I'm getting smart. So this time, about 6-8 months ago, I got a new hot water heater. And by the way, I want to interrupt this and tell you that it was a 30-gallon. The last time it was a 40-gallon. I knew you'd be interested in the difference in the... But back to the main point on this guarantee, and I can go on for how much? The guarantee that he gave me, it'll last certain. Now you may need it. Instead of losing it, let me show you how clever I was. I took a thumbtack and kind of folded it over several times, put it up against the wall, the little closet where the heat, and right there. See it? No, I've got more to tell you, Jim.
Was that a glass line water tank?
Is that a what?
Glass line?
A gas line?
No, a glass line. Glass line water tank?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I'm going to tell you about it when I find out. But I will tell you now that it's electric. Now listen. You're interested, aren't you? I also took the little adjuster, and I want to tell you, it's not at 125 degrees or 115, as some of you might have thought I might have, because I know you're interested in it. I set it at 120 degrees, which makes it nice and hot without wasting electricity or scalding your hands. Do you want to hear more?
No.
Yes. You want to ask a question?
Knock it off. We got the voice.
You'll come right back to doing it again. Watch. Do we ever learn anything at all? Or do we simply repeat it? The same old behavior while verbally saying we understand. All right, I'll tell you what. We've discussed the idea of fear in many, many ways. So we're just going to have open discussion now until the break and then after the break. You may have questions or comments. Put together all the ideas that we've had and see where you'd like to discuss it. In any way at all, on any subheading under fear. What do you want to talk about? Money, sex, marriage, Alan.
The actually seem to not learn anything at all. Does this have to do with there's so many different I's in it?
Fear? Oh yes, because
we don't learn anything at all. We'll repeat the same mistake over and over. Is it because we're so fragmented, so divided?
Yes. Eyes are loaded with vanity. They say, I know, I understand. And despite the fact that you fall down every 5 minutes and bump your forehead on the cement, doesn't occur to us that there's a difference between what we claim and what happens to us. We can't see the connection between our false claim of knowing the right way and the fact that we get bumped 10 times a day. We can't see the connection between our faulty thinking and the pain that comes out of it. Dorothy, did you have your hand up? Or who had?
Yes.
And then...
Anger comes after the fear.
Say that again.
Doesn't anger come after the fear?
No, they can come any way at all, and they're all mixed up. Don't say one comes before the other. Fear could come before anger, but believe me, they're all brothers, very tightly together. You can see this for yourself. All right.
That's because it seems that I am angry just as
often as I am fearful. I mean, it's all the time. It's there all the time, just like the fear is.
Don't separate them. I told you that last night, I believe it was. Fear and anger are inseparable. They're negative emotions. Two little imps down there. But one of them will express itself outwardly at the time. Then the alternate will take over. Have any of you, and you have, we all have, been real afraid of something? What are you afraid of? Something you're going to lose your money, lose your partner, whatever. You're afraid. And then after a while, the fear fades down, and the anger out of it comes up. Then you shake your fist at that man who's going to leave you, or hope that he leaves you, or whatever. Duffy.
Yes, letting people impose upon you has a lot to do with fear. You fear that if you don't listen to their trouble, they don't like you. Or you fear that if you do not let them impose upon you, next time you want to impose upon them, they won't be ready to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of fear involved with it, imposition.
Good statement, sure. Do you know that you're aware of perhaps one small particle of the total fears you have? The one, all right, this is examination time. What is the fundamental cause of fear? Who will tell us what is the fundamental cause? Yes, please.
Projection of time.
Pardon?
Projection of time.
Projection of time. That certainly connects with it, yes. I was going to say it in a different way. Joan May or something.
That we don't exist in the way we think we do.
That's good.
The pounding persistence of I thought.
Yes. We're all saying the same thing.
Misunderstanding.
Miss Arlen. Fine.
Defending a false position or image.
Yes, right. Do you see, to put all these together, we have an illusory self, right? And we insist in our ignorance that this illusory self is real. Having insisted that it's real, we must now do everything possible to, quote mark, affirm that it is real, which is an impossibility. And we sense, don't know, we're not conscious, but we sense that it's an impossibility to prove ourselves. So what happens? What happens when the distraction is gone? A great, overwhelming sense of helplessness and hopelessness takes us over. And it becomes so unbearable, so painful, that we immediately find the escape in a thought or an activity of some kind. Try to see the connection between being afraid and a feeling of helplessness, that you're at the mercy of everyone and everything. And you resent that person who imposes on you, don't you? Why don't you have the courage to get rid of him, to get rid of her, to get rid of them? Psychologically. You don't get rid of your parents. You get rid of them psychologically by understanding how they are the same mama and the same papa right now at 50, 60, 70 as they were when you were a small girl, small boy. They haven't changed, not really. The same people. And you know that they would injure you again if they could? And do you know that their level is still trying to injure you? Don't you know that the unconscious level is the automatic injuring by attitude, by facial expression, by deeds? Some of you ought to be ashamed of the facial expressions you put on right in this room when you're off guard. You have no right to spread your gloom and depression into this room. You have no right to do that to yourself. We're bent on wrecking ourselves. All of you here, to summarize, then you can take up, all of you here in this room, all of you listening to this tape, have an opportunity to be free, equally free, of being imposed upon and imposing upon others, because the suffering is equal on both sides. When you impose on another, you are saying to the other person, you can give me something of value. You can give me a reward. They have nothing to give you. Do you ever learn the lessons you get here? I'm going to watch during the break to see how many you've forgotten.
In its usual fashion, the world has completely turned upside down the notion of selfishness. Now, some people listening to this would be frightened or threatened because they thought, oh my heavens, what will happen to me if people stop going along with my demands for their attention? And what we're saying is that real selfishness is to go along, that is destroying both the other person and us. That is, we are looking for a state of life where things happen naturally, where there is no artificial effort to, as you say, fill the vacuum that is left when I see that I don't exist as I thought I did.
Mm-hmm.
All this blabbing and imposing is only to fill up that vacuum.
Right.
When that is left empty, then something entirely different, something spontaneous happens, which is not an imposition on either side. It just happens with complete ease.
Yes, well said.
Part of the buffer, which is the vanity, says everyone else blabs, but when I speak, it's intelligent, it's interesting, it's something people want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And if we each have that buffer, then that's the problem.
Isn't it strange? We all say, not knowing we say it, I have a right to talk to you as long as I want about anything I want. In other words, now to change it a little bit, I have a perfect right to bore you all I want. That's my privilege to bore you. But please don't bore me. Let me do the talking and bore you. Do you think people see that? All right, let's have a little poll here. How many of you in this room are brilliant, interesting, constructive, helpful conversationalists? May I see your hands? Oh, more than I thought. That's nice. How many of you are dull, unending bores? You were both, Ernesto?
Yes.
All right, see the connection between, look, a bore is a bore, right?
Right.
See the connection between being a bore, it could be many variations, not just talking. You know, a bore can just stand there and stare at you for 10 minutes waiting for you to do something exciting. That's a boring person. No initiative, you have to push a button before he takes 2 steps. You tell a joke and he laughs. He can't tell a joke himself. Someone else even has to do that and supply his laughs for him. All right, back to the main point. See the connection between boredom, being bored, and being a bore, and plain old mechanical unconscious thought. They're exactly the same thing, are they not? See the back and forth between them? You sit there and blab unconsciously to someone else. All right, we have talked about, I've got it. How many of you bore yourselves?
Right.
Pretty dull company, right?
Yeah.
So whose thoughts are causing whose boredom? See the connection? All right. How do we escape boredom? If you're going around the merry-go-round and you're riding on the prettiest horse you could pick out on the merry-go-round, and every 10 seconds you see the same sight, you see the hot dog stand, and it goes around more, and you see the water fountain, or you see the pretty girl or the handsome man. You go around, you see the same sights over and over and over and over and over, and at first sight they give a thrill to the false sense of self. I'm going to have a hot dog, or whatever. After a while it goes around, those thoughts get tired of thinking the same thing over and over and over. In other words, the thrill wears off, right? Not exciting anymore. The escape from boredom and from being a bore can only happen when we get off the merry-go-round and not seek new sights, but simply be psychologically above every sight, so that it can neither attract nor repel us. You can understand the attraction part much better than the repelling. Why are you repelled by anything? That old woman, that old 90-year-old man tottering down the street, you never notice him. You don't want to notice him. That's repelling to you, to your own ideas that you'll be that age, or he's all wrinkled, she's all gray, or whatever. You had better notice how you are repelled by things. And there's a fine line there, incidentally. Some things you should be repelled by, but not in the wrong way where it connects with your sense of self. How do we make every minute fresh? By not thinking, only when necessary. You're even bored about even your exciting thoughts contain an element of boredom, because you know that it's going to wear off, and you won't know what to do with yourself after you have that fun, after you go to that party, after you go on that 10-day cruise. The time will come when you're free and fresh and refreshed wherever you are, because you are new every second. You are new. What difference does it make where you are? How many of you were bored with life? Bored with life? Huh? More or less? Huh? Ah, see, I got a response when I made it easier on you. What would you like to talk about? Leland Allen.
Would you discuss this question, Vernon? Would you regard it as essential or helpful to be bored with life to make progress in the work?
Oh no, to see your boredom, to be aware of the emptiness of your life. Then Randy.
I see that my mind wants to ignore the pain that goes through me. It wants to ignore the emotional pain and go right on with whatever it's doing or thinking about, whatever trivial thing is going through it. And I connect this with why you're always telling us to slow down. It's because I need to study the pain in order to understand it.
Correct. How many of you would say that you torment yourself with your own thoughts?
Yeah.
Can you think of anything dumber than that? You don't have to do it. But you're going to have to cease to love your self-torment. That gives you a sense of self. Gives you a sense of purpose. What a purpose, to torment myself and make myself miserable all day. Randy, please.
Yes. Yesterday you mentioned that there's a natural courage that is effortless.
Yeah.
But now any effort that I try to say no to something seems like it takes a tremendous amount of effort to say no or to say yes when I should. Is this because I'm still motivated by fear to do these things?
Yes. You have to start out in very, very small ways. If you meet a ghost along the path of truth, if you meet a ghost there, you're certainly going to have to deal with it in some way or other. You mustn't ignore it. We're trying to build authentic courage, cosmic courage, by looking at the ghost, by studying the ghost, instead of running away from it with another idea, for example, that I'm not afraid of a ghost, or that God will save me from the ghost. That's just an idea. And any idea you have toward the ghost will keep him going. This means that we have to come to the point of exhaustion of trying to understand and get rid of the ghost by our own intellect. That is where the ghost resides. So how can the intellect which has created the ghost get rid of him? He can't. But we're going to study the ghost and come to the point where we see that I have created him. No one else on the face of this earth has ever made me afraid except myself. The beginning of seeing that begins to see through the false power of the ghost, of the devil, and it begins to fade away. The last thing the ghost wants you to do is to just stand there, shake if you want, shake, but look, just look at it. Don't fight it. Don't run away from it. Just, even if you think that ghost is going to come over and destroy you, you stand there and let it try to destroy you. And a curious thing will happen. The closer he gets to you and the more fearful you get, at the same time you get more fearful, you will see the ghost getting fearful. Because you're getting to the point where you're calling his bluff. You say, go ahead and pick me up and carry me off and cast me into hell, or whatever ghosts do. You're not sure. You're going to go ahead and do your worst to me. Go ahead, I'm waiting for you. Come on. If he gets up to, 5 yards of you, you'll begin to see him getting a little bit nervous, figure of speech, you understand? You get a little bit nervous, a little trembly, and you're watching this, and something higher than you and your conditioned fear of ghosts comes into it and begins to see the false power that you, in your ignorance, on mechanical thought, have given to him. You actually, really, almost not literally, of course, you actually will see the ghost himself start to be afraid of the new you, not the old you. He's got the old you. You and the ghost are one. See? But you have to, everything I just said, you have to experience for yourself. From now on, you will invite the ghost to come right into you, closer, closer, closer. Do anything you want. Go ahead. Cast me into hell. Scare me, terrify me, threaten me. Go ahead. I'm waiting. You watch what happens when you do this. You've never done this before. You have trembled, and the minute you trembled, the ghost laughed. Did you know what? Figures of speech, of course, again. When he laughed, he didn't let you see he was laughing, because he has to keep a fierce look on his face in order to keep you bluffed. I'm talking about your husband, ladies. I'm talking about your wives' husbands. Ghosts take over human forms and operate through them, including maybe you and me. You threaten anyone this week? Huh? You intimidate anyone this week? You put anyone under fear this week? You did yourself, whether you did to anyone out there or not. For the last time, so you won't forget it, from now on, you will invite the ghosts to do their worst to you. And you stand there and let them. Don't run away. Stay there. A miracle will happen within you. That I know. And that you will know. Hands, top.
Sir, you have given us permission to approach people in this class that there seems to be a psychological repulsion to. Some people we're attracted to, others, for some reason, we avoid.
Yes.
What would be proper conduct?
Yes. That's quite understandable. Yeah. If you are sitting in this room wide awake, lots of light in you, you will know how to behave properly toward every different kind of psychology in this room. And I will tell you, some people you will avoid. You know why? Because you sense that your light, I'm saying if you have light now, don't get vain. If you have light, your light cannot connect, cannot converse perhaps with the darkness in that person, that person is going to have to build his own light a little better before you even want to talk to them. If you're wide awake, you'll know how to deal with anyone. If someone you don't like, you know, dislike anyone? Who dislikes someone in the room? Come on, come on, come on. Someone you dislike comes up and start talking with you, you can handle it in a state of awareness, can you not? Can't you see that light, or can I come right down to it? Light doesn't like darkness. I'll put it as simple as I can. Light doesn't like darkness. It has no connection with darkness. And any of you try to push your darkness off onto me, you'll see what happens. Gordon.
Vernon, dislike is often in me rooted in subtle judgments I make inside without anybody even knowing about it. Would you make some comments about those mental judgments?
Oh, yes. Yeah. All right. If it is simply a judgment based on... Go ahead. Are you talking or am I?
Excuse me. You are.
Okay. If your judgment is based on your conditioning, the other person reminds you of your ex-wife or whatever, you don't like them because of that association. You watch little associations like that. If you can be aware that your dislike of them is based on the past, on thought, on personal preference, then that's one thing. But see, the word dislike really isn't proper when related to higher truth, to higher understanding. It's simply that you understand, as you already understand to a small degree, that you must not talk about these things to the world. They don't want them. Isn't that a simple understanding? All right, right here in this room, if you are a little bit awake, even you can sense that certain people perhaps don't want to grow very much, and so you stay away from them. And there is such a thing as types, by the way. Different types. You'll be attracted to someone who is your type. Don't ask me, please, what they are. Walk all alone. Yes, Jim.
You mentioned yesterday that I am both in the swamp and I am the swamp. Now, to observe it is to give me a little, start to see it. When I stop thinking, then I am no longer me and there is no longer any swamp.
Right. Absolutely. Thinking creates both the person in the swamp and the swamp itself. We tried to rescue ourselves from the swamp. Have we succeeded up to this point? Did it ever occur to any of us that maybe we're doing the wrong thing to rescue ourselves? And did it ever occur to you that you don't want rescue at all?
Yeah.
Who are you kidding? I would see different attitudes in some of you if you really wanted rescue. You can come to the class and sit here if you want. We'll all be nice and pleasant to each other. You want rescue? No, you're afraid of being rescued. And that, by the way, is one reason I keep my distance from you. I can sit here and give you a talk, and we can have a nice time discussing these things, and that's as far as I'm going to go with you. Until you at least show some evidence that you want more than your self-centeredness. Turn your attention back right now on your own thoughts and feelings. What are you thinking and feeling right now? Where are your hands? Can you see both yourself and me at the same time? It's quite possible. I'm looking at you, I'm seeing you now, and I'm also looking at myself. There's just one thing going on. Let just one thing go on. Which you can't do if you're thinking. You either think of yourself or you think of me. Can you sit back and relax and let thoughts slow down so that you can see everything that's going on right now in this room, physically and psychologically? Can you get outside of yourself just a little bit? So that you're very quiet. All right. Joe, yes.
I saw Schopenhauer's Rascals at the bus terminal yesterday. A man was pleading for 25 cents to store his luggage. And I was impelled to go up there and give him the card. Oh my God, that fellow must have lost his wallet or something. And then I thought, I looked, and I saw him collect a quarter, and I saw him connect another quarter. And then he walked away, and I still thought, my God, what's going on here? And then I realized it was just a panhandler. But I was part of the Schopenhauer's Rascals because I just felt a dreadful need to give him the quarter.
What's this Schopenhauer's Rascals?
Well, the type of level this person, the person that he walked from one to the other, and they're all panhandlers.
Okay.
But why was my need to go over there and give him the quarter?
Find out. For one thing, you were really in honest doubt. You'd give a quarter to a man who lost his wallet, wouldn't you? You know. But when he becomes a panhandler, you sort of sense that's wrong. That man has not taken responsibility for earning his own quarter. And that is right. The government is destroying society by catering to panhandlers. And you can be a panhandler with $1 million. Not just the man down on Skid Row. And religion destroys people by catering to religious panhandlers. What are you really like inside? Come on. Behind your pleasant manners here in class? What are you really like inside? Who do you hate? You know who you hate? You hate your best friends. That's right. And you hate yourself, as Joan just indicated. You hate yourself for being such a miserable little creepy coward. Which you are, of course. And I don't want anything to do with that part of you. If that's dominating your life, I don't want anything to do with you, even while I have something to do with you. I've let some of you in this class go, and you don't even know it. I've let you go until you prove that you want truth more than you want your sickness. I have nothing whatever to do with you, but you don't know that. You think we're friends. We're not friends at all.